Good afternoon, everyone. We are starting in a minute. We'll just allow a few more people to join, and we will start in a minute. this what we cover is mainly on the invoicing topic, which is the uh, top of the market. Like, what is invoicing? It's a very new terminology in UAE, and many business uh, uh, owners, they don't know what is the concept. Yes, of course, that certain European countries, Latin American countries, everyone has come up with the concept of e-invoicing, and many countries are still in the process of migrating to the e-invoicing ecosystem. So UAE also, as part of digital transformation, decided to bring the e-invoicing structure, and we are going to discuss like what is e-invoicing, how the e-invoicing system will work, what is the obligation of business owners, in case of any non-compliance, what are all the penalties. These are the major things we are going to discuss. During the session, if you have any questions, please drop in the Q&A session. There is a chat for asking question. You can put your question at the end of the session. I will try to answer as much as possible. And if there is any question which not able to answer, I'll make sure that I'm coming back to you with the answer. So just to give an introduction, myself, Firoz, I'm CEO of Flyingcolour Tax Consultant and Auditing. I'm a FTA approved tax agent for VAT, excise tax, and corporate tax. Flyingcolour is a group of company. Like, we are established from 2004, last 21 years, and we are located in Dubai Media City. We are a group of company. We are into business setup, DIFC setups, and we are into accounting, bookkeeping, taxation, audit. We are also into real estate brokerage. We are also into second citizenship program. So it's a group of company which consists of multiple businesses. So without further let's jump into the topic. So this is just an overview. Like, this is what we are going to cover today. We will discuss what is the current invoicing model in UAE, and what are all the gaps in the current model, and what are all the challenges which small and medium enterprises are facing due to the current invoicing system, and what is the migration happening, like the normal invoicing model to e-invoicing. What is e-invoicing, how it works, like what model UAE is following. Of course, e-invoicing has multiple models, and who is covering in e-invoicing framework, who is excluded from e-invoicing framework. And we are going to compare that whatever the UAE model with the KSA model. Of course, it is totally different. I heard from many business owners that UAE is following same as KSA, which is not. We will discuss that portion as well. And certain obligation of business owners, which is appointing the ASP. Then who is ASP? What is their obligation? When the business should start practically doing e-invoicing, and what is the roadmap they should follow? What are all the compliance they need to take care once the e-invoicing is practically live? And what are all the common misconceptions, practical challenges, and a summary. And of course, I'll try to answer as much as questions. So that's the whole idea of this webinar. So talking about current invoicing methods in the UAE, Now, currently, let's understand what the businesses are following. Let's say one company, they are making invoice using Tally, some are using QuickBooks, some are using Excel sheets. So multiple businesses are using multiple accounting softwares, ERP to make the invoices. Now, once the invoice is made, what what that the accounts department or finance department is doing, they are converting the invoice into PDF, or they're going to print the invoice, and they are manually giving to the customer either by email or by hand. This is the current model. Everyone, like, know, like, this is what currently happening in UAE. Now, what is the challenge in the current model? There is no synchronization happening. So, example, company A is making an invoice. It's not going to get communicated to company B automatically. Someone should make the invoice manually. There is no validation. There is no checks and balances. And once the invoice is made, your finance department, your accounts department, they are going to communicate this invoice to the customer, and customer will confirm on the invoice, and they will initiate the payment. So is this invoices are as per the tax authorities requirement? Most of the people, like, they believe that yes, it is as per the FTA's requirement, but it may be or may not be. So there is no checks and balances happening in the current invoicing method. Main challenges are, like, one is it's a manual process. Second, there are different ERPs are having different formats. Like, the format of invoice from Zoho Books is not the format of invoice from SAP or Oracle. Every ERPs are having different invoice formats. So it's not aligned to the, not all invoice formats are aligned to the tax authority. So this is the current method which we are following in UAE. Now, what is the major issues in the current invoicing system? So obviously there is the data inconsistency, because the different businesses are using different formats. So there is no consistent format for an invoice. This will create an issue in, like, businesses, especially like, when you make an invoice from your accounting software, you are using your own way of format. Now, these invoices are not going to the tax authority. Imagine a situation like there are hundreds of accounting software. All these accounting softwares are making invoices in different format, and these invoices are going to tax authority. How the tax authority is going to validate the things? They need to have a uniform format and uniform method for making the invoice. So the data inconsistency is the one of the major problem in the current invoicing format. And obviously, when there is no fixed format, there is no real-time reporting, easily lead to people making errors. And of course, those people who are there are bad people always in the market. They can always do the fraud, even though maybe the business owners don't want to do the fraudulent things. Even the finance department or anyone, like, it's not like someone will do something wrong, but there is a chance to make errors, and of course chances of doing fraud also. And there is a manual reconciliation. So those who are working in finance department, they know, like, if a business send an invoice, customer is making the payment. Now the finance department need to do a manual reconciliation, how many invoices they have sent, how much payment they have received, and they need to match it and do a reconciliation. So a lot of human resources spent behind the current invoicing system. First of all, it is not structured. Second, there is no real-time reporting. And third thing, there is a huge chance of making errors in the invoice. Then there is no, like, as a business owner, if you are thinking, if your business is making 1,000 invoice in a month, which one is a real invoice, which one is a provisional invoice, what is your visibility on your cash flow? It is blurred currently because there is no clear view on what is happening in the business. This is also one of the issue currently businesses are facing. Now, most importantly, those who know, like, how the VAT returns are filed, how the corporate tax returns are getting filed, there are no supporting documents we are submitting to the tax authority. We are going to fill the figures, and we are going to put, like, the input VAT, output VAT, sales, purchases, and going to submit. Now, from a tax authority's point of view, they really don't know, is this a real figure or not, unless and until they put an audit on business and they come knock the door or they send an audit notice. That is the only situation they know, like, okay, there are some mistakes or there are some fraudulent activities happen in the business. So currently, if many of the business owners are facing this issue, that when they apply for a VAT refund, they are not getting the refund so easily. Why their FTA is taking time to refund? Because they don't have the real-time visibility. Someone is telling that, okay, I made a sales of 1 million dirhams, like it was an export, but I purchased locally, so I paid VAT. I need the refund of VAT. FTA need to do a in-depth analysis to make sure that, okay, the transaction what is done, that the purchase or like the purchase is done by the company is a legitimate transaction and they have done it as part of their business. So that is the reason any refund application, any business submitting, currently it is taking a lot of time. So of course, it is from authorities' point of view. If you are thinking from a business owner's point of view, I know it's a frustrating thing when your refunds are getting delayed. But from authorities' point, they are almost blind, that they are not having a real view on what is happening in the business. So they need to get into the picture, they need to do in-depth analysis, they need to go. Sometimes FTA has an internal audit team. So anytime any refund application goes, they are going to do an internal audit. Maybe they are not asking they're not going to the business owners, but instead they are doing an internal audit, getting the clarification. Then only they are initiating the refunds. So these are the current model. Of course, it's not a great model where there is no synchronization between businesses and there is no synchronization with the tax authority. Now, the main topic is like e-invoicing. So from the current PDF model invoicing, UA is shifting to e-invoicing. Now, what is e-invoicing? In simple terms, it is electronic invoice. So currently, the invoice what we are making in our accounting software and sending it like as a PDF, is it not a electronic invoice? Just because we are sending it through an electronic channel, that doesn't mean that invoice itself is an e-invoicing. So e-invoicing, what it is like, there will be a structured format. Anyone making invoice from any software, regardless they are using Zoho, Tally, QuickBook, Oracle, SAP, or even if they are making it in Excel sheet, there will be a structured format for the invoice. And the invoice will have 50 fields, 50. So currently, if you see the tax invoices, what we are generating, FTA, as per the tax procedure law, the tax invoice required to have 16 mandatory fields, 16. Now they are going to increase it to 50. And any commercial invoices, the mandatory fields are 52. The same applicable for export invoice also, which is 0 rated. So the number of fields are going to increase and the invoices will be in a structured format. Now, it's an obvious question that, okay, I'm using one accounting software. How I'm going to make all this structured format, everything in my software? So the authority is not asking you to do a lot of technical work or like, customize your CRM to insert these 50 fields. That's not the whole idea. But whatever invoices you are making, FTA require it in a specific format, which is a machine readable format, which we are going to discuss throughout this webinar. That is the whole idea of our discussion. Now, how it is working? Obviously, the business is making an invoice, and this invoice is in a structured format, and the format is either XML format or JSON format. These are the two formats of we as a normal people will not understand because it's a machine language. This headache will be taken care by the software company, which we will discuss who is the software company and what is their role, which is called accredited service provider. In the coming slides, we will discuss. And they are going to do the converting of our invoice from the ERP to JSON format or XML format. And they are the people who are going to share it with Federal Tax Authority. We will discuss it, how practically it works. This almost like this is what we have discussed in the previous slide also. This is a continuation. So there are steps how the e-invoicing core mechanism works. Now, how it is working, first we are creating an invoice. And this invoice, whatever we are creating in from our ERP, that invoice is converting into a XML format or JSON format. And there are certain validations happening with e-invoice, every invoices. And after this validation, the invoice is getting shared with the customer also and with the federal tax authority also. Now, do we need to know all these things? Obviously, it's a technical thing. Now, if you think of a situation that we are taking our mobile phone and calling someone, the call is going. We know that much only. We don't know the mechanism happening behind it. Or there is the IT company, or there is a the cables are going under the sea. We don't know all these things. So from a business owner's perspective also, we don't need to know how this is happening. The main agenda is like to understand what is the system. So the system is that what we are going to change is the invoices what we are making. First thing, it is going to be converted into a different format. Who will convert? Software company. And what is their obligation? They are going to convert it. They are going to share it with our customer. A copy, they will share it with the federal tax authority also. This is what happening on the surface. Inside that, okay, they are converting it into a machine readable. Do we need to know how this invoice will be looking like? It doesn't matter, like, because it's happening in the technical side. Now, in UAE, what is the model of e-invoicing? So, Ministry of Finance clarified that UAE is following a five-corner model. There are five corners. You can think of a scenario where, a transaction is happening and five people are involved in a transaction. We will discuss who are these five people. In corner one, the supplier. Now you can think of a person like you are creating an invoice. So you are the supplier. So you are in corner one. Corner two, your software partner, which is called accredited service providers. Now this accredited service provider, who will be appointing this accredited service provider? You as a supplier, you need to appoint this. Now, who all are the software companies? Is there any list of the software company? It's not any software company. Actually, the technology partners, the accredited service providers, require certain approval from Ministry of Finance to do this job. Right now, there are only 9 accredited service providers list published by Ministry of Finance. And these 9 accredited service providers are also only pre-approved. That means there is no final list. Like if you must be thinking like, okay, I need to get into someone and start doing the things. Of course, you need to do the things when it becomes mandatory or very well in advance. But for the time being, if you are seeing the list, those lists are only pre-approved. But more likely, those people only will be there in the final list as well. So you are appointing a software company, which is your accredited service provider. What they are doing, they are sitting at corner two, and their job is to convert your invoice into the structured format, which is XML format or JSON format. That is their job. They are going to convert it. What they are going to do after converting your invoice, they are going to share it with your customer's accredited service provider. So your customer also has a accredited service provider. They are sitting at corner 3. What corner 3 people are going to do? They are going to receive the invoice from corner 2. They are going to validate that invoice. Once it is validated, that invoice is going to be shared with the customer. And one copy, they will share it with the federal tax authority also. So in corner 5, the customer is sitting. And in corner 4, the customer is sitting. And corner 5, federal tax authority is sitting. So this is the 5-corner model. Now, you can think of a situation right now, you and your customer. Now, between you and your customer, there are 2 software companies. So supplier is in corner 1, who will make the invoice. Corner 2, suppliers, accredited service provider, suppliers ASP. Corner 3, customers ASP. Corner 4, customer. Corner 5, federal tax authority. This is the model UAE is following. Federal Tax Authority is not going to get the invoice or approve the invoice. They have given the authorization, or they have given this like the duty to the software companies. That is why it's called UAE is following a decentralized model. Decentralized model means uh, think of a situation. UAE want Federal Tax Authority want to approve all invoices. They want to verify all the details. That means it's a centralized model. But in UAE, they decided they will not follow a centralized model. Instead, sitting in corner five, what FTA is going to do, FTA is going to receive the invoices. So they are getting the invoices before your customer get the invoice. Now, when I give an invoice to you, before the invoice reach to your computer, Federal Tax Authority is getting this invoice. So they will have all the data which they are going to use to study, to understand the trend, of course, to initiate the audit if there is something irregular. And when they have a real-time data, obviously their actions also will be faster. The issue what we already discussed, the refunds, which is taking time. Hopefully things will be faster once e-invoicing comes, because they know real-time who made invoices, who paid, everything will be integrated. So UA is following the five corner model. Now, we are going to discuss next on the comparison between UAE and KSA. So Saudi Arabia also has e-invoicing requirement, like they also came up with the e-invoicing. They have implemented e-invoicing in multiple phases. I believe it is 20 plus phases they have taken to like implement the e-invoicing. Is UA is following the similar model or same model of KSA? The answer is no. The main difference is that KSA has a centralized model. So any supplier making an invoice, the invoice is going to ZATCA. ZATCA is the Saudi Arabia's tax authority, like how we have federal tax authority in UAE. In Saudi, it is ZATCA. So ZATCA is getting the invoice. It is ZATCA's responsibility to validate that invoice, and they are putting a barcode or once the invoice is approved. That means they are following a centralized model. Versus we already discussed that UA is following is a decentralized model. That is the main difference. Now, if you are seeing it in detail, UAE model is decentralized model, means FTA is not validating the invoice. Instead, ASPs, the software partners, are converting and validating. Versus in Saudi Arabia, it's a centralized model. It's a clearance model, means ZATCA is clearing all the invoices. This is the major difference. And second thing, it's more technical. PINT AE, PEPOL, International AE, UA is following PEPOL. So PEPOL is nothing but a European standard for e-invoicing. The full form of PEPOL is Pan-European Public Procurement Online. So it's a standard which is more or less most of the countries are following the PEPOL model. Those who are following the decentralized method of e-invoicing, they prefer to go for a PEPOL model. And UAE is not exactly taking the 100% PEPOL model. UAE has customized the PEPOL based on the requirements of UAE. That is called PEPOL International AE. In short form, it is PINT AE. So it's just a standard, like UAE, like in accounting, we are following IFRS. The same way, in e-invoicing, we are following the PEPOL standard. And KSA has a different, because they are following the centralized method or centralized model of e-invoicing. They are having their own Faktura platform. That is the platform for the e-invoicing which is used in KSA. In UAE, the B2B transactions are coming in the scope of e-invoicing. B2G transactions, which is business to government transactions, are also coming in the scope of e-invoicing. B2C transactions are currently outside the scope, which we will discuss like later in this webinar, like why B2B, like is it outside the scope forever or temporarily, we are going to see. So for the time being, in UAE, all the B2B transactions, business to business transaction and business to government transactions are subject to the e-invoicing regulations. Versus in KSA, of course, they started, if I'm not wrong, back in 21 or 22, the e-invoicing thing. So they have been doing it last 3-4 years. They have implemented it in different phases. Like now they have B2B, B2C, B2G. All transactions are in the scope of e-invoicing. So this is the major difference between KSA model and UAE model. Any of you, the business owners, thinking that okay, UAE is following the same model of KSA, so no. You say KSA is following the centralized and UAE has a decentralized model. Now, everyone's question, who is covered in e-invoicing? So this is a very common question. Like the first thing, like what I used to hear from the business owners, my company is not VAT registered. So am I subject to e-invoicing? Why the company is not VAT registered? I am doing high C sales. Or my threshold is below the VAT registration threshold, which is 375,000 dirhams. Now, we first thing, please make sure, like, make it very clear that VAT is one of the branch or one of the requirement to, of the e-invoicing. It's not the only one and only requirement of e-invoicing. E-invoicing has a broader, objective. It's not only just to comply with the VAT things. So UAE Ministry of Finance have published the cabinet decision number 142, and they clarified that who all fall under the e-invoicing regulation, which all transactions falling under the e-invoicing regulation. First thing, all VAT registered companies, are they in the scope of e-invoicing? Answer is yes. All the VAT registered companies. Companies who are not VAT registered, are they falling in the scope of e-invoicing? Again, the answer is yes, as long as they are doing B2B transaction. So now you need to think of a situation. Are you doing B2B transaction or B2C transaction? Your customer is a B2B, or he or she, the company is a consumer or not. So if you are doing a B2B transaction, regardless you are VAT registered or not, you need to comply with the e-invoicing requirement. It is very clear. Will individual fall under the e-invoicing requirement? Yes, as long as they are doing the B2B transaction, individuals also will fall under the scope of e-invoicing. Is government is falling under the e-invoicing requirement? Yes, government is also falling, but government doing the transaction in their sovereign capacity, those transactions are not in the scope of e-invoicing. If government is doing any business transaction, even they require to follow the e-invoicing compliance. Now, seeing this in short, we can make a conclusion that all businesses, if they do B2B transaction, they should comply with the e-invoicing requirement, regardless the company is VAT registered or not. So that is very much clear from the authority. Who all are not included in the e-invoicing requirement? First, B2C transactions are not included in the e-invoicing requirement for the time being. It is temporarily. Now, this question will come like, why the Federal Tax Authority or Ministry of Finance, they have kept B2C transactions outside the scope of e-invoicing? First of all, it's not a permanent thing. Temporarily, they told B2C transactions are not in the scope. They are going to bring it in the next phase. Maybe in the next phase, they will bring. They kept B2C transactions on a low priority. The reason is that if it is a B2C transaction, the customer is not going to claim the input VAT. This is point number one. Point number two, the customer is not a business, so he is not going to claim it as a business expense. So whoever is the buyer, they are not going to claim the input VAT. They are not going to claim it as an expense. That's the reason the authority may thought like, okay, we will bring the B2C transactions at a later stage. Government entities, if the government entities are doing business transaction, they are coming under the invoicing compliance. But if the government entities are doing the any transaction in the sovereign capacity, then they are not falling into the scope of e-invoice. Financial services, any company who is into financial services, most likely like banks or some loan transactions, all these things, those are not coming in the scope of e-invoicing. International passenger, air transport passenger, So already, if you notice, like any, when we are traveling, we are getting a document called boarding pass. Because the boarding pass, all the datas are already recorded and it is in a digital format. That is the reason authority clarified that if anyone who is into international passenger air transport service, they are not in the scope of e-invoicing. International transport of goods by air. So anyone who is there will be a airway bill, all the documents will be already there. So because the international transportation of goods, already the data are digitally recorded. Currently, they are outside the scope of e-invoicing requirement, but they are not outside permanently. They told like, okay, this is the exclusion is only for a limited period of 24 months. Any other transaction which authority may come in future and tell. So only these are the people who are outside the scope of e-invoicing. B2C, government at the sovereign capacity, financial services, international transport, passenger and goods transport, and any other which is authority may come in future and tell. Apart from that, any business in UAE, they are doing any B2B transactions or B2G transactions, they must comply with the e-invoicing requirements. Now the deadlines when we need to start appointing or finding out the software partner, which is ASP, when we should start doing the e-invoicing things, the deadlines, let's discuss that one. UAE has decided to do mainly, of course, I'm not going to discuss the government entities requirements mostly. Let's focus on the businesses requirement. So mainly UAE divided the, making it in two phases. Phase one, UA is focusing on the big businesses. So any business who is making more than 50 million dirhams in revenue, they are coming in phase one. The businesses who are making below 50 million dirhams, they are coming in the phase two. So there are basically two phases. Now, those who are coming in phase one, they need to appoint ASP before 31st July 2026. We are in December 2025. So 31st July 2026 is the deadline to appoint the ASP. And those companies should start live e-invoicing mandatorily from 1st January 2027. That is phase one. Phase two, for the business who are making annual revenue below 50 million dirhams, they should appoint the ASP before 31st March 2027. They are getting little more time, like roughly 9-10 months extra they are getting to appoint the ASP, and they should start invoicing from 1st July 2027. These are the two phases for businesses. Question is that what is 50 million dirhams revenue? Is it from our VAT return or is it from our financial statement? The revenue is always from your financial statement, not from your VAT return. So if you see your financial statement, audited, unaudited, if your revenue in the previous year in the current year, 2025, if the revenue is above 50 million dirhams, you need to appoint the ASP before 31st July 2026, and you need to start invoicing from 1st January 2027. Now, government authority is starting a pilot program from 1st July 2020. Sorry, there is a mistake in the date. It is 1st July 2026. For that, government will choose certain businesses. Mostly they will choose the big businesses, but we never know. And those business which are chosen by the Ministry of Finance, they must start e-invoicing from 1st July 2026. So already the entities which are selected, they must have got the notification from the authority that your business is selected for the pilot program, and they should comply from 1st July 2027. Any business who want to voluntarily adopt, they don't need to wait for the deadline to come and thinking like, okay, now we are facing a lot of issues. So the government very clearly told that if you want to voluntarily do the adoption, you can do it by yourself, and from 1st July 2026. Here also the last 4th and 5th, please read the date 2026. It's a typo error. So any business want to do voluntarily e-invoicing, they can do it from 1st July 2026. So this is the deadlines the authority have confirmed. Now, non-compliance requirements it's a very interesting thing which business owners should be very careful when it comes to the non-compliance of e-invoicing. So far in UAE, any deadlines missed, anything non-compliance, always it is penalty. Corporate tax not registered, penalty. Return not filed on time, penalty. Tax payment not done on time, penalty. Of course, penalty is bad, but it's only penalty. That's not going to happen in e-invoicing. E-invoicing non-compliance has penalty. Yes, they have huge penalty, which we are going to discuss in the next slide. But my main focus is not on the penalty. My main focus is on the non-compliance, which can lead to stopping the business activities. How that is going to happen? That think of a situation: I am a supplier and you are my customer, and when I invoice you, I'm not giving you e-invoice. I'm just making a PDF invoice and I'm sending it to you. Will you pay me? You may pay, but you cannot claim the input VAT unless you have a valid tax invoice. Or maybe even the authority come and tell that the customer should have the valid e-invoice to claim the expense for corporate tax purpose. So as a customer, you are not going to pay me until I give the e-invoice. So it's very crucial that more than penalty, if any company is not complying with the e-invoicing requirement, the customer may stop paying. They will tell like, okay, first send me the e-invoice, then only I'll make the payment. Because from a customer's perspective, if you think the customer cannot claim the input VAT, the customer cannot claim the expenses for corporate tax purpose, then the customer will upfront tell that send me the invoice, then I will make the payment. So more than penalty, it can literally stop the business if the businesses are not complying with the invoicing requirement. Is it the only thing, like, okay, only this is the problem? No, there are penalties also. There is a cabinet decision published in 2025. It was published in last month. So that gave a clear idea like what is the penalty for non-compliance of e-invoicing. It has mainly focused on the 5 things. First thing, delay in appointing ASP, the service provider company. So we told like if a company who is making revenue above 50 million, they have to appoint the ASP before 31st July 2026. And any company who is making below 50 million, they have to appoint ASP before 31st March 2027. In case if any business not doing this appointment on the dates what we have discussed, they are going to get a penalty of 5,000 dirhams per month. This is the first one. Second one, any business who is not sending e-invoice, in that case, per document, they are going to get a penalty of 100 dirhams per invoice. And they have maximum capped it 5,000 dirham per month. So per document, 100, maybe there are businesses who are sending 1,000 invoices and they didn't send e-invoicing. So if you directly calculate 1,000 into 100 will be 100, 1,000 into 100 will be 100,000 dirhams. Authority told there is a cap of 5,000. It's too bad. Like 5,000 dirham per month. It will be huge for businesses. The same way, if a business, when they send an invoice and they want to send a credit note, many reasons like the deal didn't go through, so they want to send a credit note. That credit note also should go through the invoicing platform. So it's not only about invoices sending, the credit notes are also going through the invoicing platform. Any business who has not sent the credit notes through invoicing platform, again the same thing, 100 dirham per document, and it is capped maximum 5,000 per month. In case any system issues are there, we are using our ERP software. We have tied up with, let's say, ABC accredited service provider, ASP. While processing the invoice, we face some technical issue. We have to intimate the authority immediately. In case if the business failed to inform the authority, there is a penalty 1,000 dirhams per day. There is a penalty for not failing to notify the authority the system issues on time. If you appoint the ASP, can you change the ASP? Yes, you can change the ASP. And also how the ASP will be working. ASP will not be simply coming and connecting your ERP with their software. They will see what software you have, and is your software is having the data fields what they need to get. The data they are going to get from your ERP only. So these things they will be checking, they will be verifying before they going to connect their software with your ERP. Now, in case if your business is changing any data fields, that need to notify to the ASP. If the business failed to notify the ASP any data point changes, 1000 dirham per day penalty will be applicable. These are the penalties so far Ministry of Finance have announced through uh, Cabinet Decision number 106 of 2025. So far, we discussed what is current invoicing method, what is e-invoicing, what model UA is following, five corner model, what is the obligation of businesses, what are all the deadlines, what is the penalty. Now, what is the benefit for the business or once the e-invoicing comes? First thing, it is an automated invoice. Like once you have making the invoice and your customer is getting it on real time, and there are less chance of making errors, because if you make error, the invoice is not going to get processed. So your customer more likely will not come back and tell that you need to change the invoice to this, let's say, certain fields they cannot ask to change because it's a standard format. So there is less error, chance of error. And when you give invoice on real time, your payments will be quicker. As a business owner, you will have a clear cash flow visibility, because real time you are going to see how many invoices have processed, how many invoices you have received. Of course, you will also receive the invoices for your expenses. So you will have a clear live view on your sales invoices as well as your expense bills. This is going to reduce your compliance cost, because the records are standardized. Regardless, I make an invoice, you make an invoice, you need to follow the same format. So that is going to reduce your compliance cost. And when any audit happening from FTA, we will be more or less ready. Now, one thing I need to be very specific, that just because e-invoicing we are doing, that does not mean that we are complying with the VAT law. The software company, which is ASP, they are not going to check the VAT rate. They are not going to check the date of supply. They are not going to check the place of supply. Their job is very simple. The invoice what you are making, they are going to convert, validate, and send to the customer as well as the Federal Tax Authority. The commercial arrangement between you and your customer, your ASP is not going to validate. So the VAT law, when you are making an invoice, is it standard rated or 0% VAT, or it is not like in the scope of VAT, which is out of scope, or exempt supply? When the date of supply is happening, all these things required to be validated by the person who is making the invoice. So these are the few benefits which businesses are going to get once the e-invoicing is in place. Now, as a business, what you need to do now at this point of time? I have checked with many countries who already came up with the e-invoicing requirement. I almost spoke to all pre-approved ASPs who are those 9 ASPs. What I understood from my discussion, that most of the businesses are going to face the issue with the data. The data currently it is scattered. It is not in a particular format or a structured format. Yes, there are companies who are using some standard softwares, and those softwares they will be updating as per the e-invoicing requirement. So those people may not be facing problems. The main problems will come those who are using customized ERP and customized accounting software. Those businesses should make the fields or do the customization, so that the data points are clear, and when the mandatory dates are coming, they are not facing any problem. So what practically a business should do, they should assess the current system. What is the invoicing workflow format? Is there any system gap? inventory is integrated, all these things, internal check required to be done. After that, this e-invoicing, it's not only a tax department job, it's a combination of tax department, IT department, accounts department. Everybody has their own role. If you ask me personally, I'll say your IT department has more role than your accounting department or tax department, because those who are using the customized ERP, their ERP required to be customized as per the data fields which are required by the Ministry of Finance to make e-invoice. After that, we need to choose a ASP, because there are very limited ASPs currently. More ASPs will be published by Ministry of Finance in the coming months. You need to talk to the ASP, understand like which one is feasible. Obviously, they are going to charge for each document you are processing. How it is going to work is when you make an invoice from your ERP, that invoice is going to get converted, so they are processing your document. Now, let's suppose you make a mistake in that invoice. Can you edit that invoice? Answer is no. We need to pass. Now, when I'm telling mistake, if the mistake will not happen in the format, but mistake can happen in the VAT rate or the date of supply or the amount. So any mistake we are making, once the invoice is submitted through the invoicing platform, then anything we want to change, we need to pass a credit note. We cannot directly edit any invoice. So any, like each and every document these ASPs are going to charge. Also, they have other role also, like whatever the invoices which are coming, like your supplier bills, they are going to validate that also. So it's a two-way system. They are converting your sales invoice, they are validating your purchase bills. Both way it works. Need to talk to the ASP. As a service provider, Flyingcolour is also talking to multiple ASPs to find out like the best and the cheapest solution for our clients. So for sure, those who join, who are our clients who are working with us, you don't need to worry. We are behind, all these things, and we will come back to you with the best solution. Now, once the ASP is in, like we found out, like okay, let's assume the business is having less than 50 million dirhams turnover, and they need to appoint the ASP before 31st March, and they need to start the invoicing in another 4 months. So if the business is thinking like, okay, I have another 4 months, I will wait. I will say a big no to that, because testing is required. Maybe if let's say we have decided that we will start on the mandatory date, many problems businesses will face. The system will have some malfunction, maybe some fields are not working properly. So this can create the problem. And if you remember, I explained that the penalty per invoice is 100 dirham, 100 dirham per invoices. Also, the big problem, the customers will tell like, unless you give the invoice, we are not going to pay. So my recommendation is that no need to wait until the last minute. Need to find out the system gaps. Need to identify the accredited service provider and do the integration, do a test run. Then, if required, like we need to maybe require those who are having in-house finance department. They need to train the team. Many works are behind it. So my recommendation is not to wait till the last minute to start invoicing. Like we can make mistake until it is mandatory. We can do a lot of testing. If there is anything is getting failed, we can talk to the ASP, we can talk to the IT team. Those things need to be done, and on the day of mandatory, like which is 2 phases, the mandatory dates, the system should function properly. So a proper time is required to do the testing as well. Few common misconception. I believe most of them we must have already discussed, but let's go through one more time. E-invoicing is only for VAT registered companies. The answer is no. Any business, including an individual who is doing B2B transactions. So e-invoicing is not based on the business or the VAT registered or not registered. It is the bottom line concept is very simple. Are you into B2B transaction? You need to comply with the e-invoicing requirement. Of course, B2G transactions are also there. The second misconception, now everything is in system, so the VAT return will be auto-populated. Not at the moment, because the main reason B2C transactions are not in the scope of e-invoice. Maybe in future, once the authority brings B2C transactions also under the e-invoicing framework, then the VAT return may be auto-populated. We can wait for that day. But for the time being, just because someone is bringing the e-invoicing system, that does not mean VAT return will be auto-populated. Another misconception, PDF invoice are no more accepted. In the sense, you can still send PDF invoice to your customer. No one will stop you. But for your customer, the tax invoice is always e-invoice. So for commercial discussion, you can always send PDF invoices. You can negotiate. You can talk to them. Once the terms and conditions, everything is finalized, then official invoice, you can send it through the e-invoicing platform. So PDF invoice it's not that PDF invoices are banned in UAE. Only thing, it's not a official document anymore once e-invoicing is mandatory. Another misconception, any mistake in the e-invoicing, it can be edited, which we already discussed. If any mistake in e-invoicing, there should be a credit note. No editing once the e-invoicing is submitted. Another thing, the ASP will take care of everything. ASP is just a software partner. They don't know your commercial arrangement with your customer. They don't know your VAT treatment, whether it is zero rated or standard rated. They don't know your place of supply. They don't know your date of supply. They are just going to check whether your invoice is in the structured format, or like the required fields are there or not. They're going to convert, validate, and communicate. Now, what are all the implementation challenges will come in the e-invoicing? So most of the things, like we already discussed in the different slides, that we are using some businesses are using certain ERPs from very old, like maybe 10 years before, 15 years before, they are using one ERP. This ERP may not have the capacity to adopt, or like customization possible or not. A lot of challenges will be there. First thing, as a business owner, what you need to do is check your current ERP, check whether this data fields can be integrated or not. Is your data is clean or not? This is the first thing you need to do. Once that is done, then the next step will start talking to FT, accredited service providers, to whom we need to work with them. Of course, different ASPs are, there is no uniform charge from ASP. As far as my experience, when I spoke to multiple ASPs, everyone is having different charges. They are charging on onboarding. Some are not charging on onboarding. They are charging per document, different rates. Different ASPs are having different packages, 100 invoice, 5,000 invoice, different packages. ASPs are charging different amounts for integration. So everyone is charging differently, which is viable for your business. You need to have a budget for that as well. And data quality and standard format. Of course, this is again the data cleaning. As I told in the initial slides, that the biggest challenge will be the current data and cleaning the data, and integrating the system and doing the test. Like, this is the main thing what we need to focus. So next is like a quick summary what we need to do. We need to check when is our deadline for appointing ASP. Are we in phase 1 or phase 2? Then in that, we need to plan, like, who will be our ASP, what system require changes we need to do. All these things we need to check. And once we are clear with all the things, then we need to talk to the ASP, then do a test run, train our team, monitor everything is fine. Then a detailed review is required. So on the day when it is mandatory, we are not facing any issue. It's not really about penalty. It's more about, like, going to impact the business. Now, of course, I would like to take questions from you. Before that, let me ask Paul. Those who are interested can answer. Please let me know if you are able to see the poll in your system. It's a simple question. Like, we already discussed this portion. Let's see what People are like everyone is answering. We'll wait 30 seconds. So the question is, what is the deadline for a company whose annual revenue is below 50 million to appoint accredited service provider? Discussed it multiple times. Okay, fine. Like, I mean, this is just for like, to make sure that the, I think this is the, so the businesses whose revenue is below 50 million, they should appoint the accredited service provider before 31st March 2027. Most of the people got it correct. Let's see one more or couple of more polls question. Okay. So after e-invoicing implementation, VAT return will be auto-populated. We already discussed this portion. It's not at the moment, but maybe in future. One last thing. Right. So the transactions which are outside the scope of e-invoicing currently, which is B2C transactions. So let me check for the questions for what is there in the chat box. What if the customer hasn't appointed or onboard an ASP? We already discussed, if you don't onboard or appoint an ASP, then first thing, there is a penalty, which we discussed, 5,000 dirhams per month. And also, uh, more than penalty, it's on the business aspect. If you don't have ASP, you cannot make e-invoice. If you don't make e-invoice, your customer cannot claim input VAT, your customer cannot claim expenses for corporate tax. Then in that situation, they are going to face the problem. If you have B2C transactions only, no need of ASP and e-invoicing. So if you have only B2C transaction, but the from your sales aspect, yes, you will not make any e-invoicing. But from you are dealing with B2Bs, right? Like basically, let's take an example. You have a Deva connection or you have a telephone connection. It's a B2B transaction. So they will be sending their invoice to you through e-invoicing platform. So you need to have an ASP to like receive the invoice and approve those invoices. So one side, if your customers are B2C, only thing you are not going to give them or you are not going to process their invoice through the e-invoicing platform. But on the flip side, if you are a B2B for some other, like, basically your suppliers. So your suppliers invoice will also come. So to approve those things, you need to have ASP and not for the sales part. But my customer has not got ASP, then what happens? So if you like, your obligation is to appoint the ASP and your obligation is to remit the invoice. So if your customer, I mean, of course, there are a lot of practical questions which we will have in this change. One of these things is this one: if your customer is not upon, obviously they will face the legal complication, but from your side, your obligation is to like, use the invoicing platform. There are practical questions, like I'll give you a couple of examples, which uh, phase one is deadline is different, phase two deadline is different. There is an overlapping period. So during this overlapping period, how the things are going to happen? It's a question mark. Now, another question I heard, like, what if the customer is outside UAE? Then who is in corner three, corner four? We told corner three is customers, ASP, and corner four is customer. So if the customer is outside UAE, then who will be there in corner three and corner four? So in those situations, there is no corner three, corner four, only corner one, supplier, which is you, and corner two, your ASP, and directly they will transfer the invoice to FTA. There will be a lot of practical challenge. If your customer is not doing it, the obligation is on them. We need to wait and watch how they are good. But from your side, you will be clear, like when you make the invoice. And I don't believe someone will bypass the invoicing requirement because of one thing on the heavy penalty. Second thing, people will not deal with such suppliers or customers who are not having a invoicing platform. Can your firm can you help our firm with invoicing implementation? Yeah, sure. We can help you with understanding your current business model, doing the gap analysis, and connecting you with the right ASP. Uh, Appointment of ASP, I feel it's a bit early. My personal view, a bit early, but the gap analysis and cleaning the data, that is more required at this point of time.